It's a pleasure to be here with you at the Kennedy Center and to introduce to you my good friend and colleague, Dr. Gabriel Weimann. I met Dr. Weimann 2 years ago now, and I asked him to help out with my company. I have a client who was interested in his expertise in solving some of the challenges that they were having on some of the things they were working on. And since then, we've been able to do a few more things together, and his work is fascinating. One of the things that I've been asked continually by my professors, and really it's the same group when I graduated that are here, how do you monetize and turn your degree from Middle East Studies and Arabic into something when you graduate? And there's phenomenal opportunities out there. And one of the things that you can do is to gain expertise in language and this culture stuff that's very important to being able to work on the ground. Dr. Weimann looks at messaging on the internet, and he's got a fabulous presentation. He probably could spend the whole day with you, probably a couple days. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time. So he's going to show you some really neat highlights of some of the things that he's doing. Dr. Weimann is a professor from the University of Haifa. Currently, he's on sabbatical at the School for International Service at American University in Washington, D.C. And so we're lucky to have him here in country and be able to bring him out here. Just a couple of his books. His most recent books he's written is Terror on the Internet, published in 2007. If you're interested in this topic, it's a fascinating book. I recommend you buying it. It will show you, since the web started, what's been going on. Now, I just was reminiscing about being in this room. I graduated in 95. When I graduated from BYU, we had no internet. I think a few people owned a couple laptops. And PowerPoint, what's that? Really. We live in a completely different world. And Dr. Weimann, of course, he's been tracking terrorist websites since the beginning, and he'll, again, share with you more about that. He's also written on other communications topics, published numerous articles, research journals. He's taught on sabbatical at the University of Pennsylvania, Stanford University, Hofstra, Lehigh. He's taught in Germany, also up in Canada, and also in Singapore. So he has a wealth of knowledge. His circle of influence in terms of the people he collaborates is global, truly global, and he knows all the people involved in this topic. So I'm very grateful that he agreed to spend a few minutes with you here today to be able to share with you about his topic. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Dr. Weimann, and I hope you'll enjoy what he has to say.
Thank you. What a change from a temple to terrorism on the net. It's really, and all within 1 hour. This will not be a lecture. It will be like a trip. And I'm going to take you into my archive and show you some of the findings, the recent findings in our project. Now it's 11 years now. 11 years that we're working on that. And there are many ways to look at terrorism. You can look at the politics of terrorism. You can look at the economy of terrorism. You can look at the religion and terrorism. You can look at counterterrorism. And now we are doing none. I'm a communication scholar. I teach communication, political communication, campaigns, political campaigns, and so on. And we look at terrorism from the communication perspective. That is, recently, how they use the most modern media, the medium of the internet. The findings of the project are summarized in this book. You can find it on eBay for $14, Amazon. But I'm sure you have it in the library. No need to buy it. And more than that, I will not speak about the book. I will go beyond that. That is what I would like to present to you actually today, and especially to Ahmed, because you heard me last time about 2 years ago, is to update you. What are the new trends in terrorism on the internet? What we find now, recently, on the net. Just some illustrations to give you the idea about the modern setup, how terrorists combine with the internet. So just some illustrative pictures. What you see are two Chechen rebels hiding somewhere, uniform, flag, weapons, and a laptop. Mujahideen. Kalashnikov on the left, laptop in the middle, printer on the right. This is the modern setup of a terrorist unit. Uzbeki jihadist, laptop. In the last war in Lebanon, August 2006, a bunker of Hezbollah captured by Israeli soldiers, the most up-to-date computer equipment, internet links, and so on. Now, some words about the project. The study is now in its 11th year, actually, starting now, 2009. We are monitoring terrorist websites, all of them, not only Muslim, not only Middle Eastern, all of them, and you'll see the list in a minute. Well, the number is now close to 7,000 websites. What we do is we monitor them, we download them immediately. We archive them. I'm saying immediately because this is a very dynamic environment. Some of those websites may disappear within hours or days. So we first download them, archive them, categorize them, translate them, code them, and then analyze them. Some of the analysis that we do, I'll give you some examples. Now, we don't only analyze the content, the text, but we also look at the visual. Pictures, flags, colors, all of it, videos, and so on. This research is an academic one. It is not funded by any counterterrorism agency. It's not funded by any security agency. It's not funded by any army. And we don't do any consulting for military. It's purely academic, and we focus mainly on communication aspects, strategy and tactics in persuasion online, as terrorists do. It was funded recently by two American institutions. One is USIP from Washington, D.C., where I spent 1 year, United States Institute of Peace, and NIJ, National Institute of Justice, that now is actually supporting our research on monitoring chatter in terrorist forums and chat rooms. One more word. In order to avoid any political bias, we don't select certain terrorist organizations. We monitor all of them. The selection of the terrorist organizations is based on the definition adopted by the State Department. So we don't define it, and we don't use any politically one way or Israeli or Western, but we use the most common definition. If you want to read about the whole problem of defining who's a terrorist, there is one chapter in the book that discusses. Now, our findings, since they are academic, are open to all. They are reported, they are not secret, they are reported in special reports. Many of them are online, in books, in journals, conferences, and so on. And I guess you have access to most of them. By the way, I will leave some time for questions and answers in the end, but also my email will be on the screen at the end of the lecture. So if you wish and you want to get some information, you can feel free to write me, send me an email, and I will respond. Most of these publications are available also online and are open to the public, and certainly for academic research. This research was also reported in the global media, like New York Times Review, Herald Tribune, and even, believe it or not, even Al-Qaeda in one of their websites decided to describe the book. Not because they are so happy to promote the book of an Israeli scholar, but I guess because they found that the book is in some ways complementing the most sophisticated and updated work on the internet. So they, in a way, one of my research assistants found out about it and reported about Al-Qaeda reviewing the book. Terrorist presence on the net, just some statistics. We started this research, only two of us, me and one of my graduate students, and there were only 12 websites. So it was quite easy to monitor them, to download them, to analyze them. Soon enough, after 9/11, after the war in Afghanistan, after the war in Iraq, the numbers went up, 2,650. At that time, we found out that we can't handle, the two of us cannot handle all of it. We had to apply for funding, and we had to apply for research assistance that will enable us to deal with all those organizations and websites. Today, and when I'm saying today, it's not even today, it's December 2008, we had 6,940 websites, terrorist websites, monitored on a daily basis, 24 hours a day in our research. Some of you may wonder, well, the internet is probably not that popular, not that useful in the places where terrorists come from. That is, internet is more like in Western societies, Europe, North America. It's not that popular in the underdeveloped countries, or in the third world, or in the developing countries. Well, those of you who say that probably look at the column, third one from the right. Population, percentage of penetration in population. And you can see really that the penetration levels in places like Africa, Asia, Middle East, Latin America, are much lower than in the West, like in Europe or North America. Nevertheless, please look at the last column from the right, and you see the growth in the last 7 years. And you'll see that the underdeveloped part of the world is joining very rapidly to the internet. And the amount, percentage-wise, of the rising penetration is like 638% in Africa, 248% in Asia, and so on. More than that, if you look at countries, for example, in the Middle East, and again, if you look at the third column from the right, you see that percentage of penetration in some of the Middle Eastern countries is very low. Nevertheless, go to this last column from the right, and you see the very rapid diffusion of internet into some of those countries. Iran, the rise of 2,900%, faster than any other country in the world. And the same about other countries. So we may say that the internet may be more popular in the Western hemisphere and the Western countries. Nevertheless, it does enter very rapidly into other countries. And it's not always in the pattern that we know, that you have a laptop like you have now at your office, at home, carrying with you. It's more like popular access in some of those countries. Internet cafe, libraries, public access, universities, and so on. Now, who are the terrorists online? Who are the terrorists that use the internet? I'll make it very easy for you. Don't read the list. All of them. All terrorist organizations are online. Many of them have more than one website. Many of them are in more than one format of presence on the net. That is, they have websites, chat rooms, forums, electronic boards, and so on. And they come from all parts of the world. They are not necessarily all Islamists. They are not only in the Middle East. They include all terrorist organizations, and all of them, some of them are present in the net, on the net online, with hundreds of websites. What are they using the internet for? Again, it's a long list and quite clear why. They can launch psychological warfare online. By the way, these are basically described in my book and with examples. But they can scare us. They can show scary executions, beheadings online, which they do very frequently. They can launch propaganda campaign, trying to win the minds and hearts of their own people. So it can be used as a propaganda platform. They can use it, and are using it very frequently, as a networking platform. They don't use cellular telephones. They don't meet. And they do most of the communication online. 9/11, for example. The people who did 9/11 were communicating mainly online. Recruitment and mobilization, I'll get back to this point later, but they can recruit, especially the initial stages in the radicalization process can be done online. I mean by that they don't recruit people online. That is, if somebody wants to join Al-Qaeda tomorrow, there is no online registration, like fill up this form, submit it, sign here, and you're Al-Qaeda operative. By the initial stages of religious, psychological radicalization are done online very often. And I'll show you how later. Fundraising, looking for sources, it costs money. Fundraising online. Data mining, looking for information how to plan attack, what kind of attacks, and so on. 9/11. They knew exactly how many passengers are on each flight. How did they do it? They went online and tried to do what you will probably do, seat reservation, and they could see how many seats are reserved. They could look at timetables. They could gather all the information online, and they do it. Again, you'll see some examples later. Instructions, teaching online, what I will call virtual training camps, conducted online. And finally, even conduct their own inner debates among themselves online. Now, in this lecture, I would like to focus only on 5 of the new findings. That is, the things that we found recently and are emerging, I would say, in online terrorism. The first one, narrowcasting. Now, you don't have to be a communication expert to know what narrowcasting and broadcasting is all about. But when we use the term broadcasting in communication, we mean trying to appeal to large audiences with the same message. When we speak about narrowcasting, which is the more sophisticated method of marketing, persuasive communication, advertising, and propaganda today, means that you look at the target audience, you slice it down into different subgroups, and you appeal to each group with the method, the platform, the medium, the messages, the appeals that suit them. Let me give you 2 examples. The first one, and maybe the most alarming one, is targeting children online. Children, young people, are heavy consumers of the internet. People like you, and even younger than you. They get all their communication online. They get the videos, the music, they upload, download. They communicate online, they read online, they get the news online, they entertain themselves online. They live online. Now, terrorists know it, and many terrorist organizations today are appealing to young children, seeing them as a specific, special target group for the future. Thank you. Just a recent publication, actually published in December 2008, so like a few months ago, how terrorists use the internet to target children, summarizing one project that we looked at in our data, children as target group. Some examples. Let's say that you are marketing children products. It can be, I don't know, music, rock music, Nike shoes, I don't know, fashion. What would you do? You'd probably use everything that attracts children. Comic style, stories, animation, videos, games, prize winning, and so on. Terrorists do the same, only that instead of selling shoes or T-shirts, they sell suicide, death, and terrorism. Example. Remember the story, you may remember the story of Mickey Mouse. Now, for most of us, Mickey Mouse, I think for all of us, is quite a nice guy, right? Certainly not a violent one. Somebody that we grew up with, a Walt Disney icon. Terrorists use it. One of the examples was Hamas, using Mickey Mouse image to teach hate and Islamic supremacy. The Mickey Mouse that you see here was called Farfour in the Hamas websites targeting children, not only on the websites, also special television production. He looks like Mickey Mouse, but he talks in a very different way. And the messages, there are messages of war, fighting, self-sacrifice, and even a global jihad. The Mickey Mouse is preaching for fighting for the ruling of the world, not just to get rid of Israel, which is one destination, but also Islamic leadership over the whole world. Now, when Mickey Mouse, the use of Mickey Mouse by Hamas was publicized, the Walt Disney Studios were, of course, responding in quite an aggressive way. So Hamas decided to kill Mickey Mouse And Farfour was killed by Israeli agent, online of course. Strangely enough, the Israeli agent, if you look at the picture, is a black guy. So he was killed and became a shaheed, a martyr himself. While protecting his country, he was killed. But shortly after, he was replaced by Jihad B, Nahul, Hamas B. Again, a naive-looking, innocent B, usually not associated with suicide, with killing, and with terrorism. But in this case, she is. And the messages are quite vicious and certainly related to jihad, to sacrifice, and suicide. Another method is using comic book style. Very attractive for children. Again, if you look at this website, Hamas website called Al-Fatah for children, it's a naive-looking one, right? It's like full with illustrations, colors. Certainly doesn't look like a terrorist website or something that cultivates terrorism. Nevertheless, if you start surfing this website, as I do now, like going to the links to the pages, all of them full with those innocent-looking images, you'll end up with this page, which is the real picture of a beheaded terrorist, a suicide bomber who killed herself in Jerusalem, and of course glorifying her sacrifice. So the same website, with all these cartoon-looking stories, is actually promoting suicide bombing. I'll skip some more. Now, some of the production of material targeting children is produced in Iran. Let me show you one that had many illustrations and many variations. This one, and I froze some pictures. It's a long one. It's about 15 minutes. So I just took some segments and some frames to show you. It's actually promoting suicide bombing. And the story is about a child who sees the soldiers, the cruel soldiers, killing his father. He's hiding there behind the crates, you see it. This is the ugly, cruel, with the scar on his face, officer. In this case, Israeli soldier. There are some variations where you have American soldiers. Depends on the message. The child is crying and swears that he will take revenge for the killed parent. Calls his friend Karim, and together they say, we must find a way to fight these criminals. So they go and join a group. When they are told, all right, I accept, but you must know that you must become martyrs. So here already the idea of self-sacrifice appears. The two children among themselves decide that they will do it. And they are blessed by the mother. Now, this is very important. Most of the studies on suicide terrorism suggest that families are not, no religion, by the way, and no family is sending the children to kill themselves. So when you try to promote suicide terrorism, you have to overcome those obstacles. And one of them is to show them that the parents are supportive. So in this film, they show the mother sending the children to their death. Farewell, my dear ones. Go, my children. Do not let the enemy beat you. So she's supporting, which is, by the way, not real. In most of the cases, the families are not supporting sending children to suicide bombing. In some cases, suicide bombing were prevented because the family preferred to turn in the child and not to see him killing himself. So you can see here that they are trained how to use grenades, attacking a convoy. Of course, the same officer is in that truck. Allahu Akbar, they scream, jumping to the death, killing themselves and the targets. Another method used by terrorist organizations, again, targeting children, is computer games. Children like to download and play with computer games. All of us like it. And there are many computer games that terrorists are now adapting for terrorist purposes. That is, it looks like a terrorist, like an innocent game. Once you start playing with it, you'll find yourself all of a sudden in a virtual training camp of a terrorist group. Like this one. Hezbollah, group active in Lebanon, developed a game called Special Force, one that you can actually download from the net and start playing. It's a game that starts like shooting targets and getting scores for successful targeting, but it became slowly a training camp. They even developed a newer version in August 2007. And they certainly, as you can see from this quote, they certainly see it as a recruitment training procedure for young children. It's not only the examples that I gave you, there are many of them. You can go for the Chechen rebels website and see that they are using children game. In this case, the Chechen rebels are glorified and the Russian soldiers are targeted. Many other games, I'll skip some of them. Quest for Bush, that was popular until Obama was elected, was a game used by the Iraqi insurgents, again, to appeal to children. It's taking Bush, but not only Bush. Please look at the bottom and you see Tony Blair, but also the Jordanian king as targets. And it's a shooting gallery. You get scores for killing the leaders of the Western nations or the king of Jordan. And it's all done in a way that the child who plays it is desensitized to the idea of killing, Western targets and Western leaders. You can see some of the frames in this game. How many of you know about Second Life? Okay, so not all of you. Second Life is a virtual reality environment. You can actually log on to this website and live a virtual life with different identity. I would not recommend it, by the way, but terrorists are considering the potential of Second Life, because in Second Life your identity is protected. The whole idea of the game, and people join it only because of that your real identity will never be revealed. Okay, so you live in a different world. You can meet people, you can fight people, you can train people, you can preach to people, you can teach people, you can coordinate actions, all of it done in a second type of reality. Now, is it attracting terrorists? Seems like it may be. It might be. And at least some articles are now reporting that terrorists are looking at it as a nice virtual hideout and a training camp. One note that I should make, Ahmed was kind enough to suggest that I repeat it. Some of you, after my lecture, may consider the potential or the possibility of surfing into terrorist websites. Let me make one warning. I should have made it at the very beginning, but it's not too late. And this is what I tell my students. I have a class that is monitoring terrorist websites, and I tell my research assistants. If you do monitor, if you go to terrorist websites, don't forget that you are going into a very bad neighborhood. And it's not a game. So whatever you do there, don't interact. Don't send them messages. Don't answer. Don't question them. Don't argue with them. And don't identify yourself. It's not a safe neighborhood. So if you feel like you want to go into one of the terrorist websites and see what's going on, as long as you don't do anything, as long as you're just lurking there, you are safe. The moment you try interacting with them, you might be targeted both by terrorists and by counterterrorism agencies. So this is my advice, and all my research assistants, all my students were never harmed by that, as long as they follow the rules. This is a scary neighborhood. So be careful, because sometimes people get the idea that, well, let's play with terrorists, right? These are not the people you want to interact with. These are not the people you want to play with. So even after my lecture, you feel like you want to explore this world, keep the rule. Don't ever get involved, okay? Some children website. This is the Muslim Brotherhood, mainly the Egyptian website. Again, the messages are very nasty when you compare them to the almost innocent childish graphics. Many websites, and I'll go very fast through them, targeting children, appealing to children, speaking about children, and so on. Is it effective? You may remember, this was the execution, the first execution online of American hostage in Iraq. It's not the first execution online. The first execution online was an American journalist, Daniel Pearl, executed by a group associated with Al-Qaeda. And in 2002, the video of the execution was posted online. It's still there, by the way. Nobody could remove it. Thousands of websites are presenting it. But this was the one when Nicholas Berg, the first hostage of Zarqawi. Zarqawi was the leader of the insurgents in Iraq, standing here in the middle. Just a second before the execution, I will not show you the video, and it's a scary one. And if you want to watch it, go to the net, you'll find it. I suggest you don't. It's a scary one. Nevertheless, this was the execution online, the real one. And sometime later, we found online a video of children playing the game of execution. Now, it's very clear that they've been watching that execution. I just froze 2 frames from the children's game. But it's clear that it's a fake execution, beheading. But you can see that they know how it was done. The victim is kneeling in front of them. They watched. It's very clear. Now, is it effective not just in the sense of making children play the game, but it's also effective because we have today more and more children being used by terrorist organizations, not only in the Middle East, worldwide. And this is the evidence of the head of MI5 from Britain and some other examples. Another example of narrowcasting, and I'm really trying to move fast because I want to show you all the examples and let you ask questions at the end. Targeting women online. Women can be used by terrorists in many ways. They can become themselves fighters. They can become themselves suicide bombers. They can provide help to a husband, a brother, a son involved in terrorism. And they can send their children to become terrorists. All of this brought today, and this is again quite a new trend, so new that we just reported it months ago, an article called Virtual Sisters. We use this title, by the way, because in many cases online they call themselves sisters. How terrorists target women online. Example, this is Al-Khansa. The title is Al-Khansa, online magazine of Al-Qaeda. The color is pink, appealing only to women. Now what you see is the cover page. It's actually a booklet, full with instructions and texts. And the chapters there are how to raise your children to carry on jihad, how to provide first aid to your relatives injured in fighting, how to train women to become and to prepare themselves for fighting, and how to support fighting husbands, and so on. There are many websites today that target women, that became narrowcasting women, like Hamas website, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, in this case, by the way, using Photoshop, they just assembled different pictures of different suicide bombers and put them together as if they are a unit, a group, fighting together. Websites targeting mothers to support sending their children, like in this case, Sacrifice Without Limit, the mother of 3 shaheeds, presenting suicide bombers, glorifying them, rewarding them. And even this picture, which is quite alerting, it's fake. It's not really true. I mean, it's not really a child being sent to with an explosive belt, because the explosive belt is not true. It's fake. But the message is clear, that the mother is supporting, sending her son, a very young son, you can see, to a death mission. The famous case of Rimal Riyashi. I have some videos that, if we have time, I can show you later, about the children. She was a mother, young mother, married, of 2 young children, and she was sent to commit suicide bombing. There's a long story why they sent her, why Hamas sent her. But after her death, her sacrifice was glorified, rewarded online in posters like that when she's still holding her child. I have the videos, but we'll keep them for later. Her daughter now is a star of another production online, glorifying the mother. You can see the text from the song. And she even promises that she will do the same, follow her mother way, and commit suicide attack. The impact of suicide, the impact of targeting women online is quite clear. We have more and more women involved in suicide bombing, not only in the Middle East, also in the Far East, South America, and so on. More and more groups, Tamil Tigers, FARC in Colombia, Tamil Tigers in Sri Lanka, Al-Qaeda in the Far East, in Afghanistan, the Taliban, PKK, the Kurdish warriors, fighters in Turkey, insurgents in Iraq are using more and more females for suicide missions. Second trend. When we started this research, terrorists used the internet in quite a, I would say, simple way. Not a very sophisticated. This was, for example, the early site of Al-Qaeda, Al-Nida, the call. One language only, design quite primitive, and so on. Today, this website was, by the way, removed in July 2002. But Al-Qaeda emerged in hundreds of websites that include flash music, include movies, videos, multimedia environment. Al-Qaeda is using the net, and they have specific groups or departments to deal with the media departments. They produce online print, that is, they produce booklets like this, Sawat al-Jihad, the voice of jihad, bi-monthly, which is more like the spiritual, religious, ideological preaching of Al-Qaeda. And this is a book, actually, that you can download or read online. You can download and print. You can download, print, and sell or diffuse in other ways. And many other groups produce these online magazines today. These are just some examples. Or posters. Many terrorist organizations are using online, the online platform for multimedia presence, like television, Hezbollah's Al-Manar television, Hezbollah's online radio. That is, even if you hit the broadcasting itself, they can still broadcast online, either television, radio, or in this case, publishing house online. You can download posters, books, T-shirts, everything. This is, by the way, the voice of the Caliphate, Al-Qaeda's television online. And this is how it looks. The picture on the right, by the way, is Zarqawi. And this is the way he's glorified after he was killed by American forces. But this is the news broadcast by Al-Qaeda. I mean, I know it looks strange, the anchor man with a mask and the machine gun, but this is how they produce news on the net. They even have universities online, teaching online and so on. So, for such an amount of production of multimedia material, they certainly need production facilities, and they do. You can see here, these are the Al-Qaeda's main production and distribution entities, and groups like GIMF, GIMF, that produces, most of the time when you see in the newspaper, Al-Qaeda announced, Zawahiri responded, a speech by bin Laden, all of it usually comes online, and it all usually comes from one of these outlets, as you can see, many of them. All of them have the logos like commercial production companies. Modern terrorists are using the internet and using all the most sophisticated, updated methods of internet presence, including Facebook, Second Life, Google, YouTube, Google Earth, and so on. You'll see some examples later. Hamas used the YouTube, you see the logo on the left, and had their own version called AXATube. So they just post their films, their movies, their productions online, like YouTube. Virtual communities. Terrorists are, and many terrorist groups are appealing to global communities. They reach out to them. And they reach out doing it mainly online. The internet became, for many terrorist groups, a source of a global community where they can talk, they can chat, they can train, they can seduce online. And there are no limits. It's like Mark Sageman, who wrote the book of Understanding Terror Networks, describes the net. It's like a global ummah when it comes to global jihad. I'll save you that. How do they do it? First of all, Al-Qaeda is operating directly and indirectly hundreds of chat rooms in many languages. Now, the message in those chat rooms, I must say, is not become a suicide bomber, kill yourself and die. The message is very opposite. It's usually reaching out to what they call diaspora communities, trying to appeal to lonely people, isolated people, alienated people, angry people. And you can find, let's speak about Muslims in Europe, Muslims in North America. Some of them really feel alienated, and very often rightly so. They feel that they are second-rate citizens in Germany, in Canada, in the US. Now, Al-Qaeda and other groups are appealing to them by social bonding. What I mean is, it's not like terrorism is not mentioned there, not death and not suicide, but the idea of be part of the community. We feel you. We touch you. Respond to us. We feel like you. We know what you feel. Come and be one of us. Some of them, and only some of them, will be promoted to later stages of recruitment. So Al-Qaeda is using, by the way, most of them on American servers. This is a partial group of some of Al-Qaeda's chat rooms against America, operated on American servers. Al-Qaeda's forum, some of them are for members only. That is, if you want to join, you have to fill up a questionnaire in which you give a lot of information about yourself, including your education, military experience, religious beliefs, and so on. This leads me to recruitment and mobilization online, and I have to make to repeat the notion that nobody is recruited online. But the ideological recruitment is done online. And the role of social bonding, of socializing, of creating those communities, out of which some real terrorists will emerge. Mind you, all the terrorist activities recently, in the last year, in Europe, in Madrid, trains in Madrid, subways in London, trains targeted in Germany, killing of a Dutch movie producer. All of this were done by citizens of the country, very often third, second generation, homegrown terrorism, and most of them were recruited online. Now, how do you recruit people? First of all, if you speak about suicide terrorism, you need to recruit new people. You lose some, right? And one of the important mechanisms is rewarding. This is a rewarding mechanism. How come? What you see here is a suicide bomber who was videotaped, like all of them are, before going out for action, reading his will. This is a Hamas guy who exploded, killed himself, and some citizens in Tel Aviv in a restaurant. Before he goes out, he's dressed up in a uniform with all the background. It's like a photo opportunity. But this is also used after his death to glorify him, to reward him. And this is a recruitment of mechanism. Because people can see that he is rewarded, his family is rewarded by honor and by money too. And it's done with males and females, all of them, in the same way, videotaped, photographed, and placed online. And you have virtual memorial walls like this one online, with all the names of shaheeds. Some of them, by the way, were victims of accidents and so on. Nevertheless, they are mentioned as warriors. Page after page, I won't show you, that's just a sample of 2 pages. This is a rewarding mechanism, but also a recruitment mechanism. One more thing that I want to show you when we speak about recruitment. Look at these 3 faces. Forget about the text now, okay? All of these are suicide bombers after death. Now, without troubling your young minds, I don't want to describe how one looks after an explosion of suicide belt, but they certainly don't look good, right? And there's not much to take photographs of. What you see here is a photoshopped version of the people after they committed suicide. Now look at the faces. What is the message? What do you see there? Smiling, happy. They reached another sphere. They are much better off now. They left behind all the troubles, and these 3 suicide bombers, all of them different places, different locations, different groups, but the message is clear. Better off now than when leaving. And this is another recruitment tool, showing them peaceful, happy, smiling forever, living in another world. Now, I know all the stories about the 72 virgins promised. Forget about it. They don't do it for that. It's a much more complex. To make somebody kill himself, you don't need 72 virgins. You need much more. And what is promised here is much more than just the virgins. It's life after death and much better life. Dignity, honor, happiness, smiling forever. Very often, by the way, the rewarding is given to the family members. 5 more minutes and I'm done. What you see here is a website devoted to the 9/11 terrorists. But at the top one, you see the small icon, the faces of those, as they call them, the Magnificent 19. But if you go to the bottom, you see the parents, actually the fathers, rewarding the family, glorifying the parents who send their children to this mission. I won't go, but there are just several jihadi websites that I wouldn't suggest going there, but if you feel like it. These are all used by Al-Qaeda. And it's interesting, Al-Qaeda is monitoring them. You can see from the answers that there are people who know what to answer. Many of people who who send messages are innocent bystanders. But the people who operate it, the people who try to find the candidates for recruitment from those chat rooms are from Al-Qaeda. And there are many of them. I want just to give you a list. I'll skip that, and I'll go to the last one. In the past, terrorism of the 70s, 80s, and 90s of the last century used to meet in training camps. They went to the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. They went to Iraq. They went to Afghanistan. They went to Libya. They went to Cuba. They went to North Korea. Today they meet in cyberspace. The camps became virtual. And they can get all the material they want online, free. They can download it. They can practice. They can learn. I brought some videos. Again, I won't have the time to show you, maybe later if we will have time. But some of them are found on YouTube and other public access websites, and includes instructions how to use explosives, how to build suicide vest, for example, how to use weapons and so on. This is Al-Qaeda's practical magazine, bi-monthly, called Al-Batar, the sword. Each issue is devoted to a different issue. This one is on the M16. This one is on kidnapping. Websites with practical instructions how to build bombs, from fertilizers, where to place the bombs, to use poisons, including, by the way, a specific one that I highlighted here, Recin used in the US. How to use missiles against planes, how to use cyber terrorism. websites with a list of websites on instructions on how to use terrorism, using Google Earth, in this case, insurgents in Iraq, downloading from Google Earth a map of, in this case, Basra, and just giving instructions. Just imagine, as a terrorist, how useful it is to have Google Earth for you. I mean, you have maps, satellite pictures. You can just download and use it for your own purposes. And they use it, as you can see, very often. How to maximize damage by using explosive cars. How to build a detonation device using cell phones. Many others. I'll save you those. The hundreds of websites devoted to online training. I'll stop here. Go to the end and leave my email here. So if some of you want to contact me after the lecture, send me questions, suggestions, feel free to write me. This is my, I have several emails, including the one in the States, but this is the fastest one. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions and answers. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Gabriel, for a very enlightening talk on cyber terrorism. I learned certainly from it, and I'm sure everybody else here did. I have one, maybe two very quick comments. Well, the way this was sort of presented, and obviously because this is where you're coming from an internet, cybernet sort of environment, but it always makes it sound like that's the only source as to why and how these people are recruited or influenced by. Obviously, what we have to bear in mind that these people also live in a real world, in a very violent real world where real events are happening to them.
Right.
So it is a combination of two issues. So the people, the guys, the young children in Gaza who are playing the execution are also living under very extreme conditions, with
Especially recently.
Yeah, exactly. They're facing them at every moment on a regular basis. So I think it's the combination of the two that makes this such a powerful medium and so dangerous in many respects, as you put it out. But I think we should not forget the reality on the ground and just assume that this is some virtual world that everything happens in it, almost detracted from what's happening on the ground. The other thing, and I just thought that was amusing, you were showing those video games. But they're no different from the video games everybody plays today, but instead of having an Israeli soldier, you have a towel head running around, and you shoot him instead. So that argument can flip the other way as well, just as you are training. If it's going to be a training thing, then we are training ourselves to shoot it.
Okay. Two comments on your comments. I agree with the first one. Of course, it's not enough to give on a website instructions for somebody why you should join a group and make him a suicide bomber. It's certainly a long process that involves many external and internal issues, including some personality traits to make you willing to give up the most important things that you have, and this is life. And more than that, to go against your religion. All religions in the world are against suicide. So there is something that is much more powerful than just a website. But I'm trying to use it in order to show you that it's only one uses of the internet, not just recruitment, and certainly not just by certain groups. But if you look at many groups, including Tamil Tigers, or you go to FARC in South America, or you go to whatever group you choose, and there are many, as you saw, online, they all try, I would say, to channel existing frustrations, angers. And as I said, sometimes there's the very right reasons to feel like that, and try to channel it to the direction of terrorism, violence, and suicide. More questions, please. Yes?
Where are a lot of these internet servers actually located in the world? Because I would imagine there's a pretty sustained effort.
That's an excellent question that I like. And here's the paradox. Most of them are located in the countries targeted by terrorism. Most of the websites that Al-Qaeda is using and the servers are American ones. Why do they prefer American websites, servers? Because they are more reliable, they will not crash, they are more liberal, they are open. you hack into this website and you move it or block it, they will re-emerge within hours on a different site, different server in the US. This is a paradox, one of many in this case. First paradox, many societies that attack the West for its modernity, for its technology, are using the most sophisticated and advanced technology of communication of the West to attack the West, the Internet. Second, most of these terrorists never invented anything about the Internet. They then didn't develop anything. They just learned how to use the Western technology to attack the. And one of the, I would say, the weaknesses of the Internet is its democratic liberal access. This is the beauty of the Internet, and this is the weakness that they abuse. The idea that all of us can access it, that nobody controls it, that nobody censors it. This is the beauty of this new medium. But this is also the weakness, and they abuse this weakness. Yes, please.
How are we able to attach various websites to the actual kind of urbanization rather than being just part of the franchise, borrowing off the idea?
Okay. Another good question. I like to make it a comparison. Think about two networks, okay? The first one is the Internet. The Internet is a network of networks, right? There's no center. There are many groups, centers associated with the affiliated with the network, but there's no one center only. This is the nature of the unstructured network of the Internet. Now, forget about the Internet. Think about Al-Qaeda. What is Al-Qaeda? Al-Qaeda is not a network and not an organization. It's a network of networks, of groups associated, sometimes in a very loosely way, with bin Laden. The Chechen rebels, the Spanish Al-Qaeda, the Al-Qaeda people in England, Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, all of them are not taking orders from bin Laden. Whatever they do by themselves. They associate themselves. They are affiliated. Now look at the similarity, the parallel between the two networks. The non-network of the Internet and the non-network of Al-Qaeda. And this is, we see why they match so perfectly well. Yes, please.
I have two questions. First of all, these 1,000 websites, are all of them active today in fundraising or recruitment?
Okay.
Are all of them active right now? And then the other question was, how often do these websites, how often are they bragging about future attacks? How often are they talking up different things like that, or is it all just a facade?
Two good questions. All the websites are active. All the terrorist organizations that were once on the Internet are still there. Nobody stopped their presence on the net. Nobody disappeared. All of them that were on the net are more on the net than they were before, and very often in a more sophisticated way than they were before. About the second question, they don't really plan online in a way that will be very visible to us. And I must say, in my research, I don't even try to find it. That is, I'm not in a job. My job is not to fight terrorism. I'm not trying to hack them. I'm not trying to stop them. My research assistants are not trying to identify them. This is not our role. There are counterterrorism agencies that should do the work. Nevertheless, they do present the visions about future attacks. For example, the idea of using weapons of mass destruction. I didn't have the time to discuss it, but they do discuss it. The issue of attacking the Internet, cyber terrorism, not using the Internet. Just imagine attacking the whole infrastructure that we use today, controlled by computers. Our economic system. All of this is discussed by online. Specifics about attacks, place, location, they're careful enough. They know that they are monitored, and not only by me. And very often we joke about it, but it's not really a joke. That whenever we go into a website of terrorism, back in the dark, lurking, there are about 50 people who are not terrorists, but researchers like me, my assistants, FBI, CIA, counterterrorism agencies, and so on. All of them monitor the net. Some more. Yes, please.
This might go a little beyond what you were talking about, but since these servers are based in the United States, is there legal precedent to shut them down? And, is that a freedom of speech issue? Or
Okay.
When do they cross the line into illegal speech?
You come to the question, can we stop them online? I didn't have the time to go into all the counterterrorism measures. We certainly can start applying censorship to the internet. But the question is, A, is it possible in the internet when you have no center, when nobody is regulating the internet? There is no production assembly. There are no producers. There are no thresholds. Second, do we want to do it when we know the prices in terms of freedom of liberties, in terms of who will decide who is a terrorist, who will decide what to block and what not? I mean, we are getting into a very slippery area, like how far will you go? More than that, there are cases in which political opposition, like in China, for example, are being silenced online using the term war on terrorism. Now, applying it to commercial, let's say, Yahoo groups. You go to Yahoo, you go to Google and say to them, stop being used by terrorists. They will tell you, are we to decide who is a terrorist? Do you want us to be the censors, the political censors? So whenever we discuss the issue of counter-terrorism online, and we have a paper on that, and I suggest that you read it. I don't have the time. If you write me, I'll give you the directions, and you can find it. I can send you a copy online. There are different measures that can be applied. But the idea of censoring the internet or blocking access to the internet, A, is impossible. Second, totally impossible. Al-Qaeda websites are very often hacked. They re-emerge within sometimes minutes on other websites. Second, even if technologically we'll find a way to do it, are we really want to sacrifice some of our civil liberties in fighting terrorism? We may add to terrorism an additional price, maybe heavier than the one of using the internet. So we have to be very careful about that. Yes?
The demographics that they're searching for, and specifically in recruitment. For example, attacks in Great Britain have been very well-educated, middle-aged men, living in society their entire life, whereas other areas might have, the typical terrorists that we would suspect.
Yeah, I understand. Good question. I have two answers. First has to do with the futility of profiling terrorists, suicide terrorism. For many years, many attempts were done. Researchers, from psychologists to communication and criminologists, tried to find the best profile of a suicide bomber. And there is no single profile. Sometimes they are young, sometimes they are not. Sometimes they are educated, sometimes they are not. Sometimes they are alone, sometimes they come from a group. Sometimes they are religious, sometimes not at all. Sometimes they are crazies, sometimes they are perfectly normal. Sometimes they come from very poor background, and sometimes they come from very good families. 9/11 was done mostly by people who come with very promising, positive background, let's call it this way. So there is no single profile. Nevertheless, and here we come to the second aspect that you suggested, when you look at the narrow casting that they use now, you can certainly see who are they looking for. And it's very interesting. We monitor the chat rooms, and you can see they're monitoring it too. And if you start, don't do it, but if you start projecting questions, posting questions to them, how can I help you? How can I assist you? They'll start questioning you. They'll send you a form, fill up this form to get information, and they'll get information about you, your age, your education. Do you have any military experience? What's your religious inclination? Would you like to convert? They start, I would say, profiling you. Now, this is not new. Again, they didn't develop any method here. It's all following modern marketing, online marketing techniques. They do the same. But there's no single profile, and they are clearly aware of it, and they target different groups. Okay, thank you very much. I hope I didn't bore you. I certainly don't hope that I scared you. Any more questions, you have my email. Thank you very much.